This COP meeting is very significant and very significant in the sense because the decade, every decade ends when we launch this thing. The last decade of the thing on conference, the last one which happened in Japan, had several targets which were clear cut, which were these Aichi targets, and they have set the roadmap and the vision for 2020. So when we need to reach a certain stage of development, sustainable development by 2020, we need to act today. And why we are here is that we believe that education would be the key driver to achieve any of those targets. In fact, Aichi one target talks about that everyone would be aware about biodiversity. And if that everyone has to be all the people in this world, that's a tremendous target. By 2020, if every one of us has to be aware about it, we need to draw from our past experiences and begin today. And that's why we are here to push this agenda that education has to be the central focus. While negotiations happen and they deliberate about what should be the access and benefit sharing and all, that gives this connotation that biodiversity is a bioresource, which again becomes sometimes a commodity, something to be shared, and there's a market value in it. Now there is always a tendency that negotiations can go across to pursue or perceive a biodiversity as a bioresource. It gets a market addition. And I think there comes our role in education to see that it also has an ethical, cultural linkage to that. It's not just that, and it is for the future generations. So our agenda here is to bring the CEPA, that is the communication, education, public awareness, and the education for sustainable development as the part pushing up it on the agenda.
Your organization CEE has been in existence for over 3 decades now. So how has the mission of environmental education evolved over these years? And give us one example of a major activity that your organization is taking up these days.
When we began in 1984, that time environment education per se was perhaps not very much pursued. But then when it was taken up, the idea was that let us have these students, the young age children, who would become the next generation, whose future is in their hands. Would we have to shape them or enable, empower them to take decisions wisely? And therefore this thing began with school educations, and I was not working with C at that point of time, but I traced back the history, and we have a very good publication called The Joy of Learning. And the very word saying joy of learning itself signifies that how a student, a teacher can come together to learn about environment. And it's not just environment, it has mathematics, it has science, it has social science, everything. And it integrated with the curriculum, the syllabus of that day. It catered to each and every teacher, be it from any subject. So, and that book, that publication, that it was a hands-on activity learning book. It is translated to every Indian language. It is across the countries. It's even in the Bangladesh, Maldives. So it means that that journey which began there, and where we see the shift is that kind of education, that kind of learning requires to be there in every walk of life, across every level. And that is where the education for sustainable development comes in. And CE has been very instrumental in taking that agenda up. The UN Decade for Education for Sustainable Development was announced, where world over they recognized that education was the key driver for any kind of shifts that you want to see in the society. And CE has been the nodal agency for the decade in India, and as part of them, several activities have happened. So the central mission remains to bring education for sustainable development as the main agenda into the attention of everybody.
Talking about your present major activity of climate change and sustainability education programs, in the context of India's geographical expanse, what has been your outreach?
Climate change this subject itself, the science of it perhaps requires a certain kind of articulation. It is, it is there, but perhaps people don't see the connections. So today, if I use my motor vehicle and I have not my engine not I have not serviced it and it's emitting a lot of smoke, or I am using a car where I can always use a mass transport vehicle. For me, it is simple. I don't realize that connection, but it has its own contribution towards what we all are doing and what we are all mimicking across by several people. That impact is in terms of something like contributing to the greenhouse gases and therefore the global warming and therefore the climate change pattern. And that affects somebody ground, a farmer who is on the field. It shifts their agriculture patterns. It affects somebody else, and most of them, when we look at these connections, are usually the most vulnerable, the poorest, who are living in the most vulnerable areas, and they are the people who are going to be affected the most, and not responsible for that cause, but somehow I might be. So these connections would not be well understood as of now. So rather than just say don't just take a mass transport vehicle, the action is there, but the understanding towards it has to be understood. So our idea is to make these connections known, and it's not, and the educational methodology there is to, you know, to experience that and then see these connections. So it's always better to understand through experiential learning, and that's our idea to promote that. If you would say across India, the experiences, we have this school education program, the climate change education and sustainability education program called the Paryavaran Mitra. And that program runs across India. The target is to achieve 2 lakh schools. Now, it has run over the last 2 years, and just 2 days before we had the Paryavaran Mitra Puraskars. And we had these awards from different districts and different parts of the country. And very interestingly, what we see here is that young minds do see these connections very quickly. And in fact, they would connect that to any walk of life, any activity that is happening around them. So I think we have the Indian people, because of their cultural identity and because of a certain kind of traditional wisdom that is coming across, we are better equipped to take this up. Our frugal, we have lifestyles and characteristics which show frugality. It's not actually poverty. It has frugality in it. Now the thing is, like, do I hold on to that, or shall I start mimicking consumerism, or shall I start consuming everything? So this choice of making a decision is very crucial, and that comes through not just the awareness, it also comes through a lot of value education and all, and therefore that becomes outside the school system. Any person can therefore lead you to a value education system. So I think that way India has a huge potential. Most of our larger population is the youth, and youth have a really important role to play here, I think.